very driven people because you're here even before you enter poly on a Saturday or Sunday night, and you're just asking us what can we do to get scholarships in Polytechnic? So I think that's very far-sighted, and that's one thing that is good for you lah. And today I'm a bit about myself. I'm Justin. Quite interestingly, I went to take my A-levels first. So I did my A-levels in 2016, and then I went to NS, and then I went to Polytechnic, and I did RP Sports Science. I was a direct year 2 student. So I only got my scholarship in year 3, so that's the RP higher year scholarship. So you can only, it's like your midterm scholarship lah. Yeah. So that's a little bit about me. And even though my slide says how to get a scholarship without a CCA, honestly, this is very dependent on Solar. So I'm just going to kind of share with you a bit more. And the scholarship I'm getting, right, it's a school scholarship lah, so it's bond free, and it's a merit scholarship, means that it's not tied to any financial background or anything. So if you are good and you're able to show that you're good, then you will get it. Yeah. So if you think about getting a scholarship, but it's like an exam again, an exam, and in the end, you need to know how this exam works, what is being tested for the exam, and how can you study or how can you game the system so such that you can do well in the exam. And it is really very much what getting a scholarship is. So to be very blunt, that is really what it is, and it's honestly sometimes it might be quite sad also. Yeah, but first you have to know what happens. So the very first step from a school point of view, when they select students for a scholarship, is they have to filter out students who they think have the potential to at least show something in the further stages. So the things that they will filter first is, number one, your GPA, and number two, your conduct. So if you're in school, you have some disciplinary case, that is definitely you're not going to be in the shortlist anymore. And for GPA, it really depends from school to school. So for some schools, I think either MP or SP, they have a 3.8 GPA requirement. For RP, there isn't such a requirement, and usually it's about the top 10% of each course that usually gets interviews to the scholarship. And yeah, so after the school filters you away, right? Then the school also has kind of a rubric to see whether are you the best student to get this scholarship. And this rubric is very much like this kind of hole of a man-shaped hole in the wall. So you have to kind of fit that kind of criteria that the school is looking for, and only then can you get a scholarship. So some of the criteria that they are looking for can be extracurriculars, leadership potential. Most schools, they will look for leadership potential. It doesn't mean that you need to already be in a leadership position. And the last one is character. And if you can see, right, these are all very, very interesting criteria in a sense that it's kind of the reason why they have these criteria in the scholarship is if you think about it, from a school point of view, they want to have a student that is a scholarship holder, and it's a student that they can if you think about all those on the school website, then they will show hey, this student got this scholarship and she's the head of this, this I don't know, this club expo and whatever, and it's kind of they are kind of rewarding you for being a model student in that sense. Yeah, so even if they're looking for this sort of extracurricular leadership and character, it's not really let's say a must. It's just a way of a school that of indicating that, hey, you have these things, and therefore you should have these values. You should have this kind of things that they are looking for in a scholarship holder. And yeah, so as someone who's trying to apply for a scholarship, then you think, how can I become good in these three things such that I'm able to go and fit through this hole in the wall and get my scholarship? Yeah. And so yeah, I was just starting at the board of Dr. I kind of imagine that. And from this board of Dr. the very, very, very first step is to get self-awareness. And self-awareness, what I mean is, do you know what are your values? Do you know what are your beliefs? Do you know what are your strengths? And it's only from here then you can kind of like start working towards like what kind of leadership positions can I hold, or like how do I want to contribute to the community, or like maybe just of like results, GPA, my school academics, like how am I going to allocate time to study for that? How am I going to like what am I going to aim for, And some ways of getting to know yourself better. I mean, self-awareness is actually not very easy, and sometimes it's easier to have some external inventories, external tests to kind of give you an idea of what you might be. So I listed 4 things here, which is very short. A value sort is like these very long list of values, and you just slowly eliminate values that are not as important to you until you come up with the top 5 to top 3 values that you hold most dearly to your heart. Then for character strengths, this is a positive psychology thing. So character strength is really just what are your strengths? So the idea is that everyone has strengths and everyone has strengths at varying like abilities lah. So it's whether you have more strength or like kind of lesser of that strength. And big five is a personality thing, and DISC is kind of like a working styles. Yeah, so if you want to go and search this up, just kind of screenshot this slide and go and see what are these things later lah. And then next, after your self-awareness, then you have this hand. So this hand kind of like kind of exemplifies you molding yourself to become the figure that is able to fit through that wall. And how you can do this is think about what kind of resources you have. So can be like your network. So like say your parents, your friends, your seniors, go and ask them. Go and ask them what can you do. So like even myself, I'm also can even like approach me also like you want. And online, through like just go and Google, go and research, go and read Reddit, go see SU exam start Reddit, go and see Singapore start Reddit, go and really go and see like what are people doing, what are some of the attributes of these scholars. And lastly, the very most important thing is yourself. You are your biggest resource because in the end, if you're not willing to do any of these things to go and fit kind of person to go and fit through that wall to get that scholarship, you'll never be able to do it. So honestly, you can be like very strong, peer support network and everything, but if you're not willing to go and do all these things, then there's really no point. So, and the last one, action steps. So after you know what your resources, and before you can get to this, this practicing guy that's in a figure that can actually fit through the wall, then you go and do your action steps lah. So maybe if you're in going to poly, you cannot get your first like your freshman scholarships. What can you do? You want to go and join a club? Do you want to go and volunteer? So like for me personally myself, so like from the first slide, I did not have a CCA in poly, so I didn't join any interest group. So interest group is like an RP version of CCA. And to me, I didn't really want to join a CCA because it didn't really identify my own values and my own beliefs. So what I did was I went to explore things outside of school, non-academic stuff that really identify with who I am. So as me being very interested in education and youth, I volunteered as a tutor for since start my poly time, and so that was one of the things I did. And not just being a volunteer tutor, but also trying to get to know more about how non-profits work, how does charities work, and in the whole like social service space, and really being genuinely interested in that. And that also kind of shows in the interview if are you really passionate about what you do, or are you just doing things for the sake of getting that scholarship? Yeah. And one of the other things I did was to get some industry attachments. So outside of my school, like curriculum, outside of my school internship, I managed to find like attachments to like clinics, to physiotherapists, to chiropractors, like do strength and conditioning. So it's kind of are you able to show that you're passionate about what you're doing in your course, and not just another student. Yeah. So because again you have this hole in the wall, this man-shaped hole in the wall. So during how the school assess you whether you are able to fit through this man-shaped hole in the wall, right, is for some schools they have essays, which is submit your resume, and most definitely for your interview lah. And it's like through these few things, even though you think that you might I have all these attributes I can fit the hole in the wall. I have like I have the head of my CCA, I'm the captain. I got like internships during my holidays. I got everything lah. But in the end, right, what happens is what is very important is that you're able to communicate this to your interviewers during the interview. You're able to show these levels of ability during your resume, your essay, or whatever. So it really shows. So what this actually shows us is that you can be the same person, but what people perceive you or like what people think you are can be different. So you have a person on the left who is the same person on the right, but they're all um, showing different things, they're showing a different side of themselves. And how can you show the best side of yourself? That is what the interviewers want to see when you're in your interview. And for this slide, it's actually quite interesting because if you think about it, I mean, Jia mentioned just now also, if you think about it, every single student, I mean, you're just going to believe that, hey, interview, you have your essay, and you have your resume or whatever. These are the only things that they're going to be assessing for this exam to get your scholarship, right? But it's actually not true. If your interviewers are all your school teachers, your lecturers, and everything, so honestly, your process of getting this scholarship starts way back. So if you think that the scholarship is at the end of this like spiral staircase, and your journey to that scholarship interview is like along this staircase, what I mean is you have to make yourself stand out during your normal day-to-day school life. So every single touch point that you have with your lecturers, with the school admin and everything, you have to try to make yourself stand out. And instead of being like just another scholarship applicant, like so many people walk this whole staircase before they have tried to go take this staircase to the scholarship interview. That's why this staircase is so run down. Like how many years of students have gone through the same thing. So if you think about it, it's such that what can I do to be genuine in a day-to-day thing? How can I show the best side of myself all the time when you are kind of interacting with everyone in school? And lastly is, I think I talk quite not a lot of concrete things lah. And it's honestly it's like that because everyone is different. Everyone has different values. Everyone has different beliefs, and what I put to get there to get my scholarship may not be what you are going to take there. So if you are looking for some guidance, looking for some like any senior advice kind of thing on like what can you do that's specific to your own situation, specific to your own personality, your values and your beliefs, then I really invite you that you can just drop me a Telegram message at any time. And the website there is kind of a feedback kind of thing. So if you're a bit too shy to kind of message me, you can just drop that there as well. So yeah. And one last thing is that you have to think about what does a scholarship means to you, because it is quite unlikely that or the odds are kind of against you to get a scholarship because so many people apply and not many people get them. And it's really also, are you going to put all of your value or your self-worth into one scholarship? And in the chance that you don't get it, are you going to continue working as hard as before, as when you did when you were kind of fighting for this scholarship position? And yeah, I mean, research does show that people who get merit scholarships, they do and perform much better than people who don't. So how can you buck this trend even if you do not get a scholarship? And that is what I'm going to leave you with. Thank you.